To be honest, most homeowners don't think too much about harmonization. It sounds too technical and it sounds like something only developers or architects should care about. But over the past years, I've been noticing something on the ground. The way buyers compare new launches and resale units, they have shifted. And a lot of it has to do with harmonization. So today I want to walk you through why harmonization could put your property price at risk, especially if your condo TOP between the year 2020 and 2024. Before we get into the numbers and case studies, let's start with what is happening in the market right now. So recently, Channel News Asia ran this piece of news talking about how condo sellers are now facing longer wait times and more selective buyers, especially after a whole wave of new launches in October. And in just 1 month, right, the resale transaction has dropped by more than 1/3 to the lowest in about 16 months, while projects like Zyon Grand, Faber Residence, Penrith and Sky at Holland were almost snapped up during their launch weekends. So a lot of buyers have clearly shifted their attention towards the new launches. And on the ground, right, what this means is that units that used to sell within a few weeks are now taking months. And some sellers who really need to move on, especially those upgrading or needing more space, are accepting offers below what they initially hoped for. And at the same time, right, buyers are a little bit more cautious about the economy. They have more options and they are also a lot more picky about the layout, facing and also pricing. But if you zoom out, right, the data actually shows that the resale volumes this year are actually still higher than last year, and the average price have also inched up. So technically speaking, it's not a crash, it's more of a shift in the buyer's market where you really need a strong value story for your unit in order to move. And this is where harmonization comes in, right? Because moving forward, the way that buyers look at size and per square foot is going to change. And if you're a current owner, especially in a non-harmonized project, it is important to understand how these new rules can affect how buyers perceive your unit and ultimately your resale price. So the big question here is, how does this actually affect you as a homeowner today? Because harmonization isn't just like a technical guideline that only developers care about. It changes how buyers look at your unit and how they compare different sizes and even how they judge whether your asking price actually makes sense. So just keep this in mind. The way your home is measured on paper versus how buyers evaluate it in 2025 and beyond might not be the same anymore. So before we go deeper into the impact, let's take a step back and talk about what actually harmonization is. So this is a circular from URA that came out in late 2022 and the rules kicked in from 1st of June 2023. And the whole idea is very, very straightforward. Different agencies were using all different ways to measure floor areas. So basically URA, SLA, BCA and SCDF, they all have different systems and they're based on their own requirements, which only means one thing. Everyone was speaking in kind of like a different language when it comes to size. Developers, architects, agents, and even homeowners, right? We all thought that we were talking about the same numbers, but we are actually not. So harmonization has come in to standardize everything. One consistent way of defining the floor area across the board. And in practice, right, it also means that developers can no longer package these non-livable spaces like huge aircon ledgers, bay windows, double volume ceilings into this sellable area, and buyers now only pay for actual usable space and not inflated numbers. It sounds quite technical, but the effect is quite real. Because once you standardize the way size is measured, right, the way buyers compare old projects versus the new ones starts to shift. And that's where the impact of your property value begins. And when we compare the older non-harmonized projects to new harmonized ones, right, the difference is actually quite clear. In the past, right, a typical 2-bed, 2-bath used to be around like the 700 square feet range. And today, many of the post-harmonized versions drop to around mid-600 square feet range. And it's also the same for the 3 and 4-bedders. Overall, new launches are simply built smaller. So as a current homeowner today, right, it is very normal to feel that you have an edge. Like your layout is bigger, your proportions are more generous, and that kind of product won't be reproduced in the same way anymore. And harmonization does affect all resale owners, and this part is true. But some groups, right, will definitely feel the impact more than others. And the group that I really want to draw your attention to, right, is the batch that TOP between 2020 to to 2024. And they actually sit in a very unique position in the market because when we go through the case studies later, you will see why this segment is the most exposed. But for now, just hold that thought because once we break it down, the picture becomes clearer. So let's start with a live example. I think it's easier to see the impact when we actually look at an actual project on the ground. Here we have Penrith, which is a brand new launch. And right across, we have Stirling Residences, which TOP in the year 2022. And I'm using this pair for a specific reason, right? Stirling actually sits in the 2020 to 2024 window that I've mentioned earlier. And Penrith is fully harmonized. And so the comparison becomes very, very clear. And both of them are actually located in the Queenstown area. Both are relatively near to the MRT. They both appeal to the same upgrader and family buyer pool. On paper, they should be competing head on head. But once you factor in harmonization and how buyers evaluate size, layout, and per square foot moving forward, right, the dynamics actually shifts. So in this case study, I'm going to walk you through how harmonization changes the way future buyers compare these two developments and what it means for a Stirling owner who wants to sell in the next few years. Because this will be the exact scenario that many owners in 2020 to 2024 TOP batch will be facing. Now imagine that you are a buyer coming into Queenstown with this budget, right? And you got two options. We got Stirling Residence as a resale on the left, and it's a 2+ study at 786 square feet. And Penrith on the right, which is a brand new launch, which is also 786 square feet, but this time you are able to get a 3-bedroom compact. Same quantum, same area, same convenience, but one gives you one extra bedroom and it's brand new. I think for most buyers, right, if they are honest, they will lean towards the 3-bedder, not because the 2+ study is bad, but because people naturally want to maximize what they can get. And if the price is actually similar, and you can afford a brand new 3-bedroom layout, and that usually becomes the default choice. And here's where it gets important for current Stirling owners. So if we fast forward 4 years later, right, when Penrith TOPs, families would want to buy into this location, will now be comparing with your 2+ study resale unit directly against the newer 3-bedroom with the harmonized layouts. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, when Penrith comes into the resale market, will the demand shift in your favor? And if that happens, would that slow down the future price growth of Stirling's 2+ study units? From what we're seeing on the ground today, right, yes, Stirling owners might already feel the impact because prices have already reached its peak. And once Penrith actually achieves its TOP, right, it becomes a very direct competitor, bigger unit, better perceived value, newer building, and also one more bedroom. Which is why if today you are holding on to a 2+ study unit at Stirling, this is probably the window to seriously consider your options. Not because the project is bad, but because the competition coming up next is structured in a way which makes your unit less desirable to the next wave of buyers. And this is not just about Stirling. This pattern applies to many of the 2022 to 2024 TOP projects that sits right beside harmonized new launches. So here is another example, right? And this makes it a little bit clearer as well. On the left, we have Riviere, which is a luxury resale project that TOP in 2023. A 2-bedder, which is 818 square feet that is transacted up to $2.5 million. On the right, we have Zyon Grand, which is a brand new launch, same 818 square feet, but it is actually a 3-bedroom and is transacted about $2.2 million. So if you are a buyer coming into this area with the same kind of budget, the question repeats itself, right? Do you pick a 2-bedder resale at $2.5 million or a 3-bedroom brand new unit at $2.2 million? Now, most people, especially families, right, upgraders, anyone who is planning to stay long term will naturally choose the 3-bedder option. Because technically you get more functional space, it's a newer development at a lower quantum, so it becomes a very, very straightforward decision. And once you place these examples side by side with the earlier one, you start to see the bigger picture here. So buyers today are incredibly sensitive to absolute quantum. They are comparing what they can get with the same price point, and harmonization has allowed developers to push out compact 3-bedders at a very, very attainable quantum today. And that is why many new launches today end up matching or coming in slightly below resale prices and offering an additional bedroom. And the challenge is that resale prices have climbed sharply after COVID. So when a resale two-bedder sits on the same quantum as a brand new three-bedder, right, it becomes harder for buyers to justify the resale option unless the unit really has something truly exceptional. So this is why for resale owners, right, especially for those in projects that TOP between 2020 to 2024, they need to be a little bit more intentional about their next move. And the reason is quite simple. You are the youngest batch of resale properties in the whole market, and your project has just achieved TOP, which means that prices have already run up, and you are the group that will be compared most directly to the new harmonized launches. New launches have brand new advantage, but the 2020 to 2024 batch sits right in the middle because they are new enough to compete head-on with the launches, but yet they are priced high enough that your two-bedroom and 2+ study units end up competing against the compact three-bedders. So for this group, right, that will feel the impact the most, maybe not immediately, but once the harmonized project starts to hit their TOP, right, and enter the resale market, the comparison becomes unavoidable, which is why, right, planning ahead now instead of waiting until the new supply joins the resale pool is something that owners in this window should really genuinely think about. Now let's look at two-bedroom to two-bedroom comparison, because sometimes people assume that older resale units will always feel much larger because of how it looks like on paper, right? But actually when we break it down, the difference is not actually as big as it looks. So on the left, we have Irwell Hill Residences, which is actually a resale project that TOP in 2024. On paper, right, this is actually 62 square meters or 667 square feet. And on the right, we have Rivergreen, which is brand new at 56 square meters or 603 square feet. So on paper, right, Irwell Hill definitely seems like it's significantly bigger. But once we actually break down the space into its individual components, right, you can actually see the living room is not too much of a difference. Balcony slightly larger here, master slightly larger. Bedroom 2, actually Rivergreen is larger. Master bathroom is slightly larger here. And actually the internal usable space, right, it's actually 58.6 square meters versus 6 square meters. So technically speaking, it's almost the same. And when you walk into these two units, right, it is very unlikely that the buyers will feel like there's a dramatic difference in size. Like most people will walk in and say, wow, this 28 square feet really makes a big difference. It is just not a meaningful difference in real life. So in 4 years, right, when Rivergreen will achieve its TOP, right, the real question here is, will a buyer pay extra just for this additional 2.6 square meters or 28 square feet? Or if the price is actually similar, will they choose a resale unit that is 4 years old or actually a brand new TOP unit? And when we actually look at the actual transaction data today, right, the picture is also clearer as well. Irwell Hill's two-bedder have already transacted from 1.84 million all the way to $2.23 million. And Rivergreen, which is brand new, right, transacted from 1.67 million all the way to $2.13 million. So even though, right, on per square foot basis, Rivergreen will definitely look like they have a higher PSF because of harmonization, but the overall quantum is still kept lower and manageable for buyers. And this is why new launches are competing so strongly with young resale units. Buyers are zooming in on quantum and not exactly on per square foot. And once a new launch can offer similar usable space at a younger age, at a lower quantum, then it becomes quite tough for the recent resale TOP projects to actually maintain the same price premium. And since Irwell Hill has already transacted up to 2.23 million, right? So the next thing that we need to look at is the upcoming competition, and it is coming very, very soon. Surrounding Irwell Hill, right, we actually have 3 harmonized projects. We actually have Rivergreen, we also have Promenade Peak, and we also have Zyon Grand. All of them have already transacted between 1.67 million to about 2.13 million. So straight away, right, you definitely can see this pattern. Number 1, they are newer. Number 2, they are harmonized. And their entry is lower than Irwell Hill's current resale numbers. So let's say we fast forward 4 years, right? All these 3 projects, let's say they TOP at the same time and enter the resale market in the same time. And by then, Irwell residents should be around 5 years old. So think about it in a buyer's mindset in 2029. If someone who have bought Rivergreen, Promenade Peak or Zyon Grand, maybe at the lower end, they bought around 1.7 million. And in the future, they decide to sell at let's say 2 million, would they likely have an easier time to find a buyer? I think the answer is yes, because the unit is still newer and the quantum is still lower as compared to the current resale at Irwell Hill residence. And when buyers compare usable space and layout, right, and the difference is not significant enough for somebody to pay a premium for the older projects, this is when resale owners really need to think twice. In other words, these new launches will be Irwell Hill's direct competitors, and they will definitely put a cap on how high Irwell Hill's two-bedder prices can climb. And this is why the growth of young resale projects like Irwell Hill may be restricted moving forward. Not because the development is not good, but because of harmonisation, right, it actually changes a lot of things. It allows developers to launch units at a very, very competitive quantum, and these units will directly challenge the resale units once they achieve their TOP. And this is something that all resale owners need to be aware of. The competition is no longer coming from older resale projects, but brand new, harmonized launches that buyers see as newer, cheaper, and almost same usable size. And all this can only happen because of harmonization. So if you're currently holding on to a project that TOP between 2020 and 2024, this is the group that I really need you to pay attention the most, not because your development is not good, but because you sit in the tightest competition band created by harmonization. And there are a few things I think that you should honestly look at, which is number one, you need to check if your resale prices have already reached its peak. A lot of these young resale units, right, experience the biggest jump after TOP. And if that curve has already flattened, or if your recent transactions are showing resistance, that is usually a sign that your upside may be limited. So on the second point, please check if there are any upcoming launches around you or the ones that have just been sold. What are their entry prices? Are they priced close to your resale unit? Are the comparable units coming in at a similar quantum with better layout, newer building, or even an extra bedroom just because of harmonization? Because buyers today compare what they deem as value at face value. If the new ones are coming in very near to your quantum, that becomes your ceiling. And number three, right, you need to think ahead. In 3 to 5 years' time, right, these new launches will TOP and they will become your direct resale competitors. And if the buyers in the future are choosing between your 5-year-old unit and a brand new harmonized unit at the same quantum, or that a newer unit does not feel smaller than yours, the decision becomes very, very predictable. So the intention here is not to scare anyone. It is to simply make sure that you're aware of the environment you're in. If your project sits in the 2020 to 2024 window, this is probably the best time to reassess your position, understand your price ceiling, and plan your next move before the new supply enters the resale market. Because once these harmonized projects TOP, they will shape the entire comparison landscape, and that will directly influence your exit strategy. So here's the bigger picture, right? Harmonization definitely changed how buyers compare value. And if you're in this segment that you are going to feel it the most directly, and you're wondering if your unit is affected in the same way as the examples that I've shared earlier, or you just want a clearer personalized analysis of your property's position, feel free to reach out. I can run a proper health check on your unit, look at your price ceiling, upcoming competition, and help you plan your next steps with confidence. You can definitely scan the QR code here to join my Telegram channel, or you can contact me directly and I'll speak with you soon.